Love it. We love it.
Yeah. Publicly.
Put on a face.
We love it publicly.
Turn it up. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the very special edition of the DNVR Nuggets podcast.
Let's go.
There's the air horn for you. Presented as always by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Look who I got. The fellas with me. Harrison Wind.
I'm wondering if we're going to make our special guest do an air horn.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You know what? I'll let him off the hook this one time. Over there, wearing a flowered shirt for like the third day in a row. Must truly be spring.
It's 80 degrees, fellas. Calvin, one time Arturis met me at training camp and he said, okay, so you just wear the flower shirts every day. That's your thing. That's how I look. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a little Magnum PI look. And then, of course, Brendan just introduced him, the general manager of the Denver Nuggets, Calvin Booth. Calvin, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, no problem, man. My pleasure.
Excited to have you in here, man. And I want to start. We got a lot of stuff we're going to go over today. I'm excited for this because we're going to talk a lot about the players that you brought in or your regime brought in over the last year. But I want to stop with a little bit of backstory because I feel like even I don't have that much backstory about you. So we have a segment called Cal-ibration. Little pun. You like our little puns?
Yeah,
We
little
get
play
here?
on words,
We even
puns.
made a little graphic
Always
for it. We
good.
got a little calibration right here where we're going to ask you some basic questions just to kind of get to know you a little bit.
What is going on in the background of that photo?
It's calibrated. It's a TV calibrating.
Oh, a TV. Gotcha.
It's a TV.
Gotcha. Haven't seen that in
So I'm going to start with
25
this.
years. But
Who was your basketball idol growing up?
My basketball idol? Everybody loved Michael Jordan, but more personal. Like I was like, I wasn't sure how tall I was going to be, so I had two outs: David Robinson or Reggie Miller. Those were our two guys.
choices.
The left-handed shot blocker and the shooting. I always thought I could shoot a little bit, so those are two guys I like.
Well, did you have a late growth spurt? Were you like not?
I mean, I always grew like a few inches every year. I was always above average, but like, 8th grade, like 5'11",
In
9th
eighth
grade,
grade?
6'3", 10, 6'6", junior 6'9".
casual.
But my dad was like 6'7", so I knew I'd probably be tall. So I was 6'11" my senior year.
Okay, there you go. Out here in Colorado, there's like 2 or 3 7-footers I feel every year. In Ohio, I mean, Ohio has some good hoops. I mean, were you always the tallest one, or were there always a lot of other guys?
I feel like, back then people didn't hold kids back as much. So now there's like more and more tall kids than there were, and there's some more kids dunking in 8th grade. Like I played in suburban Columbus, and I remember one time we were watching warm-ups the other end, and somebody touched the rim in like 8th grade, and we thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. Like
That's
now,
what it was like playing in Boulder, Colorado.
Same experience.
That was my experience.
But I'll tell you, in Minnesota, that's the diametric opposite of Colorado. They have, if you look at their high school rankings, their seniors, they have, 40, 50 kids 6'6" or over.
Really?
You look at the Colorado high school rankings, like 4.
Yeah. It's not much. I guess Minnesota, because they have like tall, I don't know, like
tall
Germans,
population,
tall
yeah,
Norwegians.
yeah. It's a tall population. You see a bunch of, kids that are 6'7". They might not even play basketball.
Right. Yeah, it is a tall place. So Michael Jordan, because you were drafted by Michael Jordan, right? Was he with the Wizards at the time?
He came in the middle of the year. Like,
okay.
Wes Unseld Sr., rest in peace, was the general manager that drafted me. And, Tim Conley was in the video room, and Wes Unseld Jr. was
At
doing
that
advanced
time he
scans.
was?
Yeah, 1999.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He must have been still like interning or something.
This is
I mean,
like-
I think it was maybe his very first year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Maybe
crazy.
he
That sounds
did,
right.
Maybe he did some stuff a little bit the year before.
No,
but
that's the right
yeah.
time frame. Yeah.
Yeah. So then Michael Jordan came in and bought ownership stake in the team in the middle of that year, and I was there for another year from that point, and then I got traded to Dallas.
Yeah. So, is there any good Jordan stories? Like when you were with the Wizards, did he ever come down? Was he like?
Yeah, I mean, he came down. He started to practice a lot, and like to see the kind of shape that he got in the next couple of years, because at the time he was playing with us, he never envisioned coming back and playing NBA basketball. So like, yeah, we're practicing. We're getting to be teammates or play against Michael Jordan, which was pretty cool. Even though he wasn't in the greatest shape, or the kind of shape he got into a couple of years later when he came back,
Right.
he was still like do his thing in practice and post people up and shoot turnarounds, and he was Michael Jordan.
Did he ever try to beat you up? I mean, not literally, but I'm saying, did he ever try to break you?
Steve Kerr you?
Yeah.
No. I think the other rookies were Richard Hamilton and LaRon Profit, and I think LaRon Profit was a good pace for that. He liked to kind of engage Mike and like playing one-on-one and do that kind of stuff. So he ended up taking the brunt of it.
I gotta say, the chat, you can see it on the right there, is just everybody is like, thank you for building this roster.
People are very,
There's
very
just a ton of thanks coming in on the chat.
We'll get to the roster here. I like going back to these old stories. Who was your favorite NBA team? Was it Cavs?
No, the Bulls.
Bulls? Okay.
Yeah.
I think most people don't realize this. We're getting far enough away from Michael Jordan now that I do think this next generation doesn't quite. And he's almost like Wilt Chamberlain was to me, where it's just a story. But the 90s really was, you were either a Jordan fan or Jordan hater, but that was the number one.
Yeah, Jordan was number one. I loved those Phil Jackson, Bulls, Scottie Pippen teams. There were two versions. The first one had Horace Grant and B.J. Armstrong, and Jim Paxson. The second version had Dennis Rodman and Kerr and Ron Harper. But I like both versions of those teams.
What's your favorite memory as a player through your 10-year? Is it 10 or 11-year career?
10 or 11-year career, favorite memory, I probably have to say, getting that ball from Finn in Utah and laying the ball in and winning that game. It was an exciting time. I mean, Cuban had just bought the team a couple years earlier. Everybody, I'd seen both sides of it. Like, we would come in and, be food in our locker room, and there'd be all these amenities, and nobody had ever seen the NBA before, and then getting traded there. Was a cool experience. Cuban was very involved and, wanted to see the team do well. And it was a fun team. Steve Nash was just starting to break out. Finley was also part of that big three. And Dirk, that was the first year I think Dirk got any kind of recognition league-wide. He made an all-NBA team, even though he didn't make an all-star team.
I want to get to that. Can we actually have the clip? Because some people might not realize when he's talking about the game winner, this was a crucial series winner.
This is a big-time game winner.
Play the clip real quick here.
This might be the biggest possession of the night right here.
This is Finley with the ball.
10 seconds left.
Gotta go.
Finley looks, holds, down underneath the Calvin Booth. Calvin Booth getting the go-ahead field goal. He has 6 rebounds.
The only clip, by the way, we could find of this one. But here's what I love.
Chance to win it here or go home. Russell.
Here's what I love about this play. So first of all, that's a series winner. Series over, game 5. But here's what's crazy about that one. Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, and Stockton Malone. You're talking about the best point guard, power forward of the previous era, and this is sort of a almost handing it off to the best point guard, power forward of that era, or at least right there with Tim Duncan. I feel like that's an underrated moment, kind of 2001. That specific matchup. What do you recall about that, and do you kind of see it that way, even if at the time it wasn't billed that way?
Well, even if I don't see it that way, I know Nelly Jr. and Don Nelson, who's now in Maui, I don't see as much, in Cuban. Every time I see those guys, like, the shot heard around the world, and this and that. Like, obviously Dirk did the heavy lifting over the next 2 decades after that, and Steve Nash and Finley were instrumental in building that thing to the point where they were able to win a championship. But I think Cube looks at it as like a seminal moment, and the first time he sees a breakthrough after this large investment and putting all this intention into building this brand new program up that's going to be different than every other team in the NBA.
Right. And he was kind of the first of that mold of new. It's almost like he was the first of the new generation of owners. Now we have a whole new one. I feel like all the owners of the last 5 years are younger than me.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
It's like a really young bud. But Cuban was the first of that mold.
Definitely. Yeah, he definitely was.
Kind of a cool one. I want to ask you, what do you think about Denver, Colorado? Just now that you've been out here for a couple years.
No, it's a really cool city. It's underrated that you didn't know that the sun was out all the time. And,
Yes. 300 days.
You can go to the outdoors pretty quickly. There's a lot to do in town. Fans are great. Now I've been pleasantly surprised. I think it passed Seattle up on my list. At one point, I liked Seattle because I played there and lived there. But I think Denver is a nicer metropolitan area.
Where's it on your list now?
Oh,
Seattle?
you're putting him deep on the spot.
No, what's top of your list?
Top of my list?
Dallas?
I mean, those teams are near the top. I like Dallas, living in Dallas. I didn't mind living in Minneapolis. I think Denver's nicer.
Yeah.
I like DC, living there. So there's so many beautiful cities around the country now.
All right, we'll take that.
What was the popular NBA city to visit? Like these days, you hear a lot about Atlanta. I mean, was
Miami,
it still,
Atlanta?
Miami? Yeah, is it still like that then, or was it?
I think there's just general where there's a lot to do and there's nightlife. I think the usuals like LA, Miami, New York. I mean, I think Toronto surprisingly is up there for
Really?
some guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
players
It's always the
Toronto.
winner, though. I think this is the thing. This is D-Line's theory. I'm stealing it from him. But if the NBA was a summer league, a summer sport, Colorado would get more free agents because it's nice in the summertime.
yeah.
But you come here in January and you're only here for 2 nights, you might be like, yeah, it's kind of cold here.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem. Do you have any hobbies outside of basketball?
Yeah, I think obviously watching a lot of basketball, but I read a good amount, listen to audiobooks, and watch a lot of TV when I'm not watching games. So
What kind of stuff? Like fiction,
I mean,
nonfiction?
I like a lot of nonfiction, but recently been into the last season of Succession. I'm a big Succession guy.
Great answer
We
for
can
this
do a
show.
whole nother show
Should we
on
just
that.
turn this into a Succession
we're ready.
podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? Are there any other shows that you want to throw out?
I like Snowfall. Those are
Okay.
probably 2 I'm into right now. Yeah.
All right, gotcha. Let's talk about your path to Denver here, and really your path to being in the front office. As a player, was this something that was on your radar? Like, when did it enter your mind? Like, hey, I want to do the front office thing when I'm done.
Yeah, probably. I would say like 2007, 8 was the year I really got into it because, I mean, people don't realize, like, I think the ebb and flow of an NBA player, you come out of college, most of us do at least, and then the first year, because you still know the college guys, you watch them and you watch the teams, and then as your career takes off and you have to work more and you play more games, you start to watch more NBA games, you lose touch with college basketball, maybe the tournament or whatever. So, like, the 2007-8 season was the year I really like, you know what, let me watch a bunch of games this year and, watch prospects and see what I think about them. And I ended up doing scouting reports and all that kind of stuff. That
As
I
a
kept for
player?
myself. Yeah, as a player, yeah. And it was my second time around in Washington, and Tim was still there, and he played a prominent role in, like, helping me, get introduced into the executive side of things. Like, at the end of that season, he suggested that I come out, and I think that year they did Chicago and Orlando, which was weird. And they moved it back to Chicago after that. But I went out there. Then I went to Treviso upon his advice, and got to see, like, a great draft class. I wondered if I would have been as interested if, the draft class was different. Like, the international class was like Serge Ibaka, Nicholas Batum, Goran Dragic, and the draft was like Beasley and Derrick Rose and Westbrook and Kevin Love. So, like, one of the better drafts of the last 2 decades, I would say.
Right. And
Did you ever think about coaching?
No, I mean, coaching never really interested me. I did, when I retired, I worked with Clib and did some independent scouting with Clib Hoops. But more importantly, Clib. I started an AAU program, and I built it up, and I coached that and ran that. And so I felt
What was
like
it?
Gotcha.
Which one?
it's called Nova Village. It's in Ohio. It's now ran by Andreas James, who I work with closely with it. But, like, I watch it closely, and it's kind of cool to see that, like, Portsmouth is coming up, and even though I don't know these kids personally, I know they came up through the program I had, like Tavion Kinsey from Marshall, JT Shoemate from Toledo, and there's one other kid. I mean, Jerome Hunter's at Xavier. I don't think he's coming out, but there's one other kid. Oh, Caleb McConnell. He played for the team, the kid from Rutgers. So to see these kids that, like, had a jersey on that, I created the brand and the name and
That's
worked
really
with
cool.
us. It's pretty cool,
Nicola's doing something similar right now with KK Joker. I mean, do you kind of see a little bit of yourself or that?
I think a lot of guys end up wanting to give back, and they have a vision of how they want to see things done, and I think it's fulfilling, and it's we definitely have the knowledge base for it, right?
How much of this do you think? Well, yes, but some GMs, or some players have turned to GMs and been pretty bad at it. I think it's like non-players. It's kind of a mixed bag about who's going to succeed. I want to ask a little bit about that, but I wonder. I'm just trying to get into the psychology of this. I wonder how much when you're in the NBA, you're out of control about where you go, a lot of things, and who's your coach and how you play, who are your teammates. And I wonder if some of this comes from that. You're like, hey, what if I could control everything, and I'm going to make. You just said the branding. I'm guessing you came up with the identity.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is a draw to be like, all right, I've been in this. What would it look like if I got to make all the big decisions?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically that's actually at the root of it. I remember leaving Treviso, and, like, my last year in the NBA, I started out with Minnesota, got traded to Sacramento, didn't log very many minutes that year, and it was different then. Like, I'm like seeing I'm reading between the lines. Like, you're on two of the worst teams at the time. Congratulations for Sacramento for making it back to the playoffs this year. But two of the worst teams at the time. And I'm like, I wasn't getting that much time, so I think this is about coming to an end. So I'd already been doing the scouting and doing all that kind of stuff. So I think that when I finished with Treviso, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to beg anybody for a job. These jobs are so hard to come by. What can I do? I have all these ideas about the game and, how I see it played. Like, why don't I just go ahead and do something on my own and see how that works out, And
AAU was like the first entry point to that? Or?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's building the club up. And I did a lot of stuff. I went over to Ireland and worked with some kids over there and did like a lot of stuff. And, it was an easy entry point, as you said. Like, it's not going to Spain. It's not going to Serbia. Like, the people that love basketball in Ireland, they love it. But, like, it's like the fourth or fifth most popular sport. Right? So I did that, and I felt like it provided a platform to get my ideas out and like put a team together and practice them and try to like develop them in a different way. And so, it was my own lab in a sense.
At that point, does this concept of philosophy and how you want to go about building a team or what a team should look like how defined is that in your mind? Are you still discovering that for yourself?
Oh yeah, no, I think it definitely was written out, and I had some concrete ideas about it. But I liken it to I think about this in scouting too. Like, you take a really good player like Joker even, and even though he's playing great his first couple of years, how much he polishes it and changes it, and what it looks like 7 years later is completely different than what it looked like in year one. So, so in that sense, I think it's more advanced and polished and all that. But a lot of it's along the same continuum, along the same line.
I love that you called it a lab, because that's what it sounds like. I mean, it sounds like you get into a lab and kind of create these philosophies and test out theories and say, how does this work? I know that from our experience, honestly, here at DNVR, you have an idea for what you want coverage to be, but when you actually go and do it, most of the job is stuff you weren't thinking about. You're like just trying to make it work. So I imagine there's a similarity there. Let's take a break, though. I want to keep pulling on this thread, though, and in the next segment, there's a couple things that I think might have prepared you for this job. Playing for a lot of coaches, playing with a couple Hall of Famers, playing in a transitional era of the NBA. I want to ask you about all of those on the other side.
Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. Check out the Mile High City Golden Ale from Breck Brew. If you don't know where to get it, check out the Breck Brew beer locator on their website. That will tell you where to get Breck Brew closest to you. It is Nugget season, so make sure you're drinking the Mile High City Golden Ale, the Avalanche Amber. They got seltzers as well. Breck Brew's got everything for every occasion. Breck Brew, the official beer of DNVR. Also, check out our friends at IV Nutrition. They're located off Wash Park. You have to go to the Wash Park location, corner at Alameda and Downing. Anyone who mentions DNVR when they drop by that location of IV Nutrition gets 50% off their first IV nutritional drip. So give them a call, 720-259-4404. We all went down there as a group a few weeks back, got hooked up with IV drips. They take care of you when they're down there. Super professional. They also do a lot of other stuff too. Wellness, blood testing, and consultations. They got an express lunch break drip. They got hydration drips, mega multivitamin, balanced brain, headache haven, just tons of different options that you can do to improve your health. So give them a call, 720-259-4404. Corner Alameda and Downing, their Wash Park location, IV Nutrition.
All right, back here, segment 2. We're with Calvin Booth, Denver Nuggets general manager. We're going to get to some Nugget stuff here in just a second, but I want to continue on this philosophy and some of the building of you as a general manager. So you played with Dirk Nowitzki, Gary Payton, Ray Allen, Gilbert Arenas. That's four very different players. I'm going to imagine different leaders. How much do you think playing in those different... And you were also a bit of a journeyman going to a bunch of different places. How much do you think the different coaches, different players, different experiences contributed to hey, I have a wide education on how the NBA operates?
Yeah, I definitely think it contributed. You see common themes though, like all those guys are, maniacal workers, and they're always in the gym. They're always getting shots up, and they take the craft very seriously. They do it in different ways, but seeing general themes and seeing and like being down in the locker room and knowing how, you know, an NBA player thinks at the time, I think helped contribute to me having success at this job.
So it was more about the diverse experiences, but you find the common traits, and it's like that's clearly the success is the commonalities there. That's an interesting one. And then I want to ask you about setting up a front office, because again, when I was preparing for this, I was thinking a lot about DNVR and just the different challenges we face. The more I do this, the more I realize it's about systems as much as it is about ideas. You have an idea, that's great, but how do you make it work? So now you have a basketball philosophy, but getting that to operate is half the battle, I imagine. How do you feel a front office should be set up, and what is sort of the goal for yours and how you want your front office to operate?
Yeah, I think one thing that I can control is be clear and consistent with my messaging, internally and externally, and I really try to focus on that. And like, I felt like this is my third time building a brand. You know, as a player, you have to build a brand. Who are you? When the coach looks down the bench, he has to know why he's putting you in the game, right? Then the second time was with my AU club, Nova Village, building a program, building a brand, trying to create identity and making decisions along those lines. So a lot of times I would joke with our guys, you know, we get into vigorous conversations like, hey, look, you know, I'm trying to be in and out, trying to do the best burgers and fries. I don't want to do chicken fingers the first week.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, let's do the burgers and fries good. Right. You know, so like having constructs and, you know, like you said, systems that help, that you can standardize and anybody can understand and comprehend and help replicate. I think that's a big part of having success, or sustained success at least.
What do you look for in people that you want to bring into your front office? Like what types of people do you look to bring into the organization?
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have prior relationships, right? So I think the combination of best case scenario, you've worked with somebody or know somebody and you have a vision for the job that they can do well, right? Like, and if they can't do it well, you got to find somebody, you know, maybe that you know somebody knows somebody, or look at resumes or do whatever. But like, it's very important for me to put people in positions where they can have success.
Right.
You know, and like, and to complement your strengths. You know, like, you know, we have Drew Nicholas as our director of scouting, who I worked with in Minnesota, and Drew's has extensive playing experience, great demeanor. He's played for some legendary coaches in Gary Williams and Sasha Bradovich. He's cool customer, but a great eye for talent. I think he's a natural leader and manager, and I knew he would do well in the role he's in right now. And he's adjusted accordingly, and he's been around some good teams. After Minnesota, he went to Philadelphia and worked with those guys, and then he went to Boston. So he was with the team that went to the finals last year. So I do feel like there is something to be said about having people. I mean, in his case, he won a national championship at Maryland, had a lot of success in overseas and winning. Him on the Panathinaikos team, I believe, in Greece, had one of the best teams ever. You know, Batiste, Pekovic, you know, a number of other guys that had storied careers over there. Sponoulis, I believe. So, like, I think that whole package with him, and, you know, knowing that he was somebody who was going to be able to be a natural fit for what I wanted, and I talked basketball with him before he kind of understood where I was coming from. That was important. Getting a guy like a Todd Chekovich who played basketball at Colgate and had a law degree from Villanova, and I worked with him in Minnesota, and he has a great eye for talent. And I mean, without him, you know, I'm not able to implement the scouting apparatus and structure that we want. Like, he's very meticulous and detailed, and he does a great job at like administering the program and keeping it carried on. Like, left to me or somebody like me, it fall by the wayside. I'm a big idea guy. I'm not every day guy. Right. You know, so you know, then we bring some of the interns that we've had, like Nihal, who the NBA provided from their Rising Stars program. He's been great. And Neil Honta was in the G League last year. We got to know him a little bit. Having a guy like a Mike Penberthy, who has extensive experience as a player and on the bench, and worked with a lot of great players as a shooting coach, like, and has a great all-around basketball mind. Like, I felt like, I mean, you bring all these people together, hired Darrell Arthur, who's won. Mike has won. Like, I went to Penn State. I was on some good teams in the NBA. I haven't won anything. So, I
You
feel
and
like
you and Nicola.
yeah, so I
both have
feel
said
like it's
that,
important
yeah.
to have people that have won. That's why you drafted Christian Braun, who's won a championship. That's why you have a Colin Gillespie. Like, if you want to win, you have to have people that have done it, and you have to study how it's done, and maybe try to replicate how they did it. So I'm big into believing that.
I love that.
I like it, and I mean that's one thing I've gotten to know about you. You are an ideas guy. You have like ideas for or concepts, and then you apply those to different things. And so that was as we moved to Christian Braun. I wanted to ask about this because you've mentioned it in pressers multiple times. He's a champion. Just how important? I mean, it sounds like you're saying that because it was something that was maybe missing. You want to bring it in, or do you feel like no? It's actually really tells you something about a player when they were on a team that accomplished a goal.
Yeah, I think it's a important part of my evolution as a scout was coming from Minnesota to Denver. And no knock on Minnesota. We were trying to get together, and we were in a rebuild. And
Right.
We had Zach LaVine and Wiggins and those guys. But coming to a team and seeing the guys like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and, seeing how Tim and Coach Malone approached it. But, you start to see, when we started to have more success, what those guys look like, what those players are like, You get to see with Nikola and even Jamal to a lesser extent that talent, as people perceive it, comes in all different shapes and sizes. It's not like what, people classically think of talent. The intangibles matter as much or more than the talent does, Oftentimes in this environment, stuff is always coming in and out. You're exposed to so much information, and you'll hear things like, well, Christian Braun, he'll fit well with the Nuggets or with a team. No, Christian Braun will fit well with any team.
Yeah.
If I'm running a team that's not winning, I want a guy like Christian Braun so we can learn how to win.
Right.
So I think that it's a misnomer that a guy like Christian is only suited for a team like this. I think it's a complete fallacy.
Go ahead. I was going to ask, what about Christian did you see in the evaluation process that made you think he'd be as good of a fit on this team that he is? And are you surprised at all that he's been able to play immediately? Are you surprised that there wasn't a big learning curve for him, getting in the rotation and playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought process was, and we had some other people internally liked him as scouts, but I think me personally, definitely knew who he was, definitely watched him a good amount. We were at a game that he had against St. John's. We had 30. I don't think we talked about that game that much afterwards, but we'd always see him make plays and do stuff. And I always see him like we see him now going down the middle of the floor in transition, making some block or dunk or whatever.
That is something he always makes plays.
And
he's
I'll
always
be like, oh
making
man, that was a
something
good
happen.
play, but what is he or whatever. So then the combine comes, and I watch him, and I watch particularly how he guards and how he moves. I'm like, hold on, wait, he's like a 6'7" 2 guard.
Right.
And then my whole perspective changed what I thought about him. So
even with us, we made such a big deal about his negative wingspan or even wingspan or whatever. But then when you see a guy in person, you're like, well, he's 6'7", he's huge. So negative wingspan.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I've always, and I'm giving away state secrets here, but it was a big topic of conversation. I felt like I thought about this, fleshed out, even wrote it down a number of years ago. But length is a catch-all. It's a combination of height, weight, strength,
right,
explosion, and when you're 6'7", 210, and you have a 40-inch vertical, and you're strong, it doesn't matter if you have a 6'7" wingspan if you're a shooting guard.
Right.
I remember in summer league you spoke often about and to Peyton Watson and about his growth and track. Do you have those kind of conversations with Christian, especially because he's kind of more, I guess, now in the rotation? Do you just sort of let him do his thing, or are you guys in communication about what you're looking for?
I think Christian's kind of like on autopilot. I like to tell him every now and then he did a nice job, but he's a very serious guy. He comes in, he does his job, and I think he's built a rapport with, the front bench coaches and coaches like Ogie Stojakovic, and I think him and Mike Pemberg, they have a good relationship. I think he has enough people contributing on a day-to-day basis and his growth that I don't necessarily need to, chime in every day. Whereas Peyton, I've started to do less and less of that now because he's up with us. Again, he's getting coached more by our coaches. He's not in the G League anymore. When he was in the G League, I felt that was more necessary.
Right, to reach out.
Gotcha.
Just so let's go to Peyton Watson here real quick. 3.3 points per game in college. I think the lowest scoring first-round draft pick to ever come out of NCAA. It's kind of a ballsy pick. What made you so confident about him?
I don't think it's that ballsy.
Well, I mean, on our side of the
like when you zoom out,
Yeah.
when you zoom out, you have a 6'8" McDonald's All-American
Right.
that's from Southern California, the best player in Southern California, went to UCLA, that didn't play ahead of Jules Bernard, Johnny Juzang, and Jaime Jaquez. I hope I got his name right. Like, and plays for a tough coach that doesn't traditionally play young players.
Okay.
Like, not that embarrassing when you look at it in the abstract, first of all.
Yeah, we know nothing. We don't know anything.
Secondly, when I watched him during the season in Vegas, I had a positive scouting report. But he played at Colorado. He didn't do anything. I think I wrote, like, man, I love the kid, but he hasn't done much to support drafting him. And then we go to Combine, and between him and some other guys that got drafted or other teams, I don't want to say their names because I don't want to get fined, but, like, single figures, they didn't do a lot. And I'm like, why are we interviewing these kids? They should have went back. But then I watch his pro day, and I start watching tape from UCLA, and I'm like, all right, I need to get off my moral high horse.
Right.
We're never going to be able to get a guy like this where we're going to be picking at.
Yeah.
You know, his defense stood out to me on tape. Watching at UCLA, he had the same blocks. He had the same pursuit and pressuring the ball in the perimeter. And he did the same thing in our workout. We had a great dinner in Cherry Creek North, where I got to see his mind, and I played with Andre Iguodala before, and I'm like, his basketball recall and what he knew about the game was really impressive to me. Now,
Wow.
the connection, like, he can tell you, and I think he's getting better at this, but he can tell you how to guard, I don't know, for the sake of argument, Luka Doncic. He can give you a better scouting report than maybe any player on our team. Now, connect to that and applying it in a game, sometimes it still gets lost in translation.
Right.
You know, but I think as he gets older and more mature, we'll start to see more of his natural basketball acumen. So having a guy with that kind of IQ and athleticism and tools that like to play defense, like, it was an easy pick. I wanted to trade up. The guys in the room are going to murder me for trading up.
Can Iguodala be a comp for him?
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys. Like, I think just sky's the limit. Peyton Watson's going to be his own player.
Right.
Sure.
But, like,
sure.
he can pass. He's probably a better scorer. At the same time, I think Andre had a better understanding of who he was. Like, because he wasn't a great jump shooter. He wasn't a great one-on-one scorer. Peyton can do so many different things. I think, like, vacillating between those different things makes him amorphous game sometimes. But, like, when we have the talent around him and he knows he needs to do certainly, I think he said it recently, he does whatever we need to do to win, right? You know, so.
When you say recall, what do you mean? Like, he can recall different specific plays and all the details that were relevant.
Even players, and I mean, a lot of these guys, they just look at their phones and they know modern players. They might not even know, like, the fifth guy on a like a playoff team right now. He knows, he could tell you who Randy Brown is and where he played at. And, like, you know, he could tell you, you can bring up basketball names and who they played for from the last 30 years. He could tell you what their game was and what series they impacted and what game that was. And I think, like, when somebody does that, they're not just casually participating in basketball. You know, they're more invested, right?
And emotionally too,
And
not just mentally, but I imagine it means he cares.
Yeah,
because he put the time into
the two best guys, you guys had the NIL deal with, Colorado's state's own David Roddy was. Those two guys were the top two guys by far last year in the draft process with that ability to regurgitate past information about NBA basketball and plays and stuff like that.
Is that part of your, one of your theories again about, these things, about these traits? Like, I'm guessing when you go to dinner, some of this is like natural, we're just having dinner, but I imagine some of this is, I want to ask about this, just to get a read on guys.
Yeah, we don't have a script, but, like, you want to find out certain things about their life and their basketball background and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, you want to see how invested they are in being a good basketball player. Because I think we drafted a guy that's going to be, for a lack of a better term, a project. He has to have high character and high work ethic, right? You know, because that's the only way they'll make it.
Right. So Peyton spends all year in the G League pretty much. Comes up these last 5-6 games. I mean, he's been like the number one item that we've been talking about here on the show. What have you just thought of this recent run that he's been on and the kind of the stuff he's flashed?
No, credit to the coaching staff and him. I think, Coach Malone showed a lot of faith in playing him a lot lately, and, big ups to him for him to that. And everybody knows at this beginning of the season, I was the biggest fan maybe in the league, and, he wasn't ready, His preseason shot selection wasn't good. He would put himself in situations where he turned the ball over, focus from play to play with Wax and Wayne. And, just physically, I think in the G League there was a point where, I felt like his impact on the game, he was producing every game, and he was showing that he was one of the better players in that league, and made a conscientious decision to bring him back to Denver to have him work with Felipe and put some weight on and get stronger. And credit to Felipe and Peyton, he did it. Yeah. Put on 10 pounds. All his weightlifting numbers went way up. And, I felt like that was an important part because as being a former player, I want guys to be prepared to take advantage of every out. And I believe I use that terminology with him and his agent. I remember Tayshaun Prince, and he was much more seasoned coming out of Kentucky, but he didn't play at all for Detroit. And they were down 2-0, and I think in a 5-game series against Orlando. And he starts playing, and he does a fantastic job, and he never turns back. If that one time comes, you have to be prepared for it. So originally we had planned for Peyton to play many more G League games, but I knew certain plays when he get knocked off balance or, he couldn't hold his own, that to be able to take advantage of this, it happened in the regular season for him, but this out, that he needed to get stronger. And I'm glad he listened and bought into the vision, got stronger, and now he's able to play the game in a cleaner fashion, able to hold his own, and people don't see him as a guy they could just automatically come at, right? So I think all those things are very important.
Yeah. Maybe that Tayshaun Prince opportunity in the playoffs is coming. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
How different might that process have been for him without a G League affiliate? If this was just he's getting reps, and did it feel like you guys were more connected to him in communication about the whole process?
Yeah, I think everybody from in our organization, Scott Howard ran our G League team this year. I think he did a good job of setting up a forum for him to develop. And, we sent guys down. One of our guys had brought him on with him. And I think having that connectivity and it being yours definitely helps. In another scenario, we would probably just assigned him to an affiliate, and we would have sent somebody with him. And then we're at the whim of we're going to send our rookie down. He's not going to play as much. Right. So that definitely is a big part of having him develop and this quickly.
Yeah.
Let's take our second break here. On the other side, we'll start talking about some of the other pieces that are new, as well as just evaluating the season for the Nuggets and looking ahead to the playoffs.
Guys, Backus and Shanker, when you get hurt, give Backus and Shanker a call. They're here to help Backus and Shanker wins for Colorado families. They've been helping those seriously injured in Colorado for more than 25 years, and the coolest thing about them is you don't pay them any money until they win your case. So no upfront fees, no fees while they work on your case. You only pay them if they win. And they've won over $1 billion for clients, and they've got locations and neighborhood offices in Denver, Aurora, Englewood, and Fort Collins with 30 lawyers on staff, more than 100 staff members. Yeah. They should be your go-to. So give them a call. Yeah. Backus and Shanker helps with all kinds of injury cases where you weren't at fault: car accidents, motorcycle, rideshare, pedestrians, trucks. They can even help you if you're injured at work. Give them a call, 222-2222. They got the easiest number to remember. Find out if you have a case for free. Backus and Shanker wins. And also, if you need tickets, maybe the Rockies, check out the Game Time app.
I'm going tonight, and I got them on Game Time, baby.
There you go, right there. Where are you sitting?
Oh, I'm sitting lower level.
Who are you cheering
on
for?
The first base.
You're gonna really?
Well, I'm going in all my Rockies DNVR gear.
Okay. Nolan Arenado diehard.
I'm cheering for the Rockies as loud as I can.
I love it. Great work.
That's
Bo.
right.
Great work.
That's right, boss.
All I need is you to lie to me. That's all I want.
I can lie.
Lie in the right direction.
If you want to sit first base at a Rockies game time, maybe you can sit next to this guy.
He just gave out where he's sitting. Go bother him.
Download
Go hold him to the thing he just said.
Game Time app.
Rockies.
Use the code DNVR. You get $20 off your purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account with the Game Time app. Use the code DNVR. Get $20 off. Don't go messing around with all those other third-party sites. Just use Game Time. Great Rockies tickets, Nuggets tickets, Avs tickets, get tickets for the playoff run coming up, concert shows, sporting events, whatever you need. Use the code DNVR, $20 off your tickets from Game Time.
Should take a shot every time Arenado gets a hit tonight.
I don't want to
get a little.
Yeah, I don't want to be stone cold sober for the whole game.
He wants to get a little fired up.
We got to talk trash about filthy Cardinals fans. Who do you hate in sports, by the way? It doesn't have to be basketball. Do you have a team that you grew up just like?
That's a great question.
Man, who do I hate?
This is how you really get to know a person.
Yeah.
Like, give us who you
Sports hate is the best kind of hate because it's not actually real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of real for the Lakers.
Probably Utah Jazz.
Really?
Yeah.
All
I see the Bulls played a lot of times.
That's
right. Yeah, true.
You get to hold on to that one being here in Denver, you know?
Exactly.
I like it. All right, let's get into some of these other ones. First of all, I have to imagine it's hard for us to block out the noise, and we're not that famous. And then what we do is much more inconsequential than what you do. DeAndre Jordan was the first person announced in free agency this year, and I think Nuggets fans freaked out. Now, it's played out greatly. I mean, he's been, I think, by all accounts, a great asset. You see him on the bench doing all these things. Well, you know, are you following along with that kind of thing? Like, it was like the clock strikes, 2 o'clock or whatever it was, then it's like first move of the is DeAndre Jordan. Are you following along at how people respond to different things?
No, I was in the middle of a field in Sombor, Serbia.
Wait, where?
I was in Serbia having dinner with Nicole.
That's right. That's right. I forgot. At the same time.
Let me tell you, people loved it. People loved it, Calvin.
I got back later on. I said, wait, this is a big deal. Like, I didn't realize. It was like, we had an order, like we need a center, and like we talked about a lot, but I guess somehow it got out, and it's funny how the world works these days. Like when the information is delivered, it makes it worse. And I mean, honestly, I don't know what it is, what happened in other cities with DeAndre. Like, like I was joking with Coach Malone the other day, like, man, DeAndre Jordan's the most despicable, worst player I've ever seen, man. Like, if they want to see bad, wait till they see Calvin Booth at the end of his career. Like, he's not that bad, man. He's not that bad of a player, man. Like, forget about what he's done in the locker room and everything, which has been fantastic. But I think, like, we see it easily. He still goes out there and gets rebounds, and he still has a presence. Like, everybody knows, like, when you get older, the consecutive actions or maybe changing ends. And, like, in this NBA, it's really fast, and those things stand out sometimes, man. Like, I think that's something you can critique, but like I think all in all, as a player, even like forget about what he's done in the locker room. I think he's well above the line of still being an NBA player. I know that's a controversial take, and I'll get skewered on social media tonight. But, but like, and now you talk about his impact in the locker room. That's a whole nother deal.
Yeah.
I think it's just him and Jeff Green and Ish Smith and even Bruce Brown, all the vets we still have that have come back. But I think he's really taken on the role. He's got a assertive personality. He's willing to engage guys and talk to guys, and I think it helps take pressure off of Joker and Jamal because they're more lead by examples type people.
That's interesting.
Michael Malone has talked about how much he loves the vets that you guys have, and I mean, you were on great teams as a player. How important is it to have those types of voices when you've got a team in this position trying to win a championship?
I don't know, man. Should I just wait and react? But honestly, I think it's going to be very important. Now, I think this whole concept that every single roster spot has to be absolutely optimized by somebody that's going to contribute on the floor is like a little ridiculous.
Sure.
Like we're going to have a third two-way, so we're going to have 18 guys.
Right.
And I think if a lot of times the guys that got the most upside are younger guys. So if you wanted to try to optimize every single roster spot, you're probably starting to get a little heavy on like inexperience. And I think an important part of my philosophy, you have to watch somebody do it that you're trying to take their role eventually. You're going to play into the role. And like maybe worst case, you don't get to see them do it, but they can tell you how they did it, and they're there every day on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, and so I definitely think dedicating a roster spot or two to making sure that we have guys that are dedicated to like helping our young guys learn how to be pros, how to work, how to win, like how to deal with adversity. Like I think that the 15th roster spot probably provides more value in that sense than it does from a playing standpoint.
Right.
I could see
This
that.
is what's so interesting about that concept, though, is because when you build a roster, you want to check all boxes. We need rebounding, we need ball handling, we need shooting, we know all those things. But then you're talking about situational, like we need a veteran, we need a young guy with energy who's going to bring it every night. We need these different types. But I feel like there's even a third one, which is personality. And I just wonder, do you put any thought into? This is stuck in my mind since Richard Jefferson was here, where he said it was the most boring locker room he'd ever been a part of. There's just no personality to it. Is there such a thing as a personality deficiency on a team where it's like, hey, man, we got to get some guys that are just loud in here?
Well, I think diversity of personality. I think everybody has a personality, but like, having different having guys that are charismatic and the other guys that are really focused, that does his job and doesn't worry about too much externally. I think having a mix of everything, I think in that sense, like, DeAndre is that guy in this locker room where he's definitely on the one end of the spectrum as far as being outspoken and being willing to engage guys and get guys together and go out. A lot of these guys that have won championships, and we have one on our team in KCP, they believe that, like, the guys to eat together, win together. So I think they've managed and policed themselves in a fashion where they feel like they're getting together a good amount and they're building that camaraderie up the court to where if somebody takes 3 bad shots in a row or doesn't play defense, like, maybe you're frustrated, but you're not as frustrated and you're willing to move past it. I think that's what that's about.
It's so true, man. Like in all walks of life, you can have people that really vibe together, but if you have all passive aggressive or this or that, when something happens, then you need a different type that you didn't need normally, but you need them in this specific circumstance. I think it's true of basketball teams as well. Just real quickly, Bruce and KCP, what made you target them? What did you see in them?
I think we had conversations back in the season when Tim was here about KCP, and we were trying to work on a deal. And always a focus for us because we felt like his defense and three-point shooting would be impactful. And Bruce Braun, we did not think he was going to be available in a taxpayer mid-level. We did bring him up, and I started to talk to Ty Sullivan, his agent at the time, more and more as we got closer. And, down to a few names, and credit to Tommy Balchettis. He was really a big Bruce fan and really thought he was a guy that we should add. And then Coach, we started to bring him names, and he watched him some, and he really liked him. And, I was like, it made sense. And it was right along the lines of whatever we were trying to do. And I think his game has been a pleasant surprise in a lot of different ways. I didn't know he was so offensively inclined with the ball. I saw him as a guard. I knew he could do some of the Wildcat stuff in Brooklyn, but we're trying to focus on increasing our positional size whenever we can. And he's played a lot of minutes at the 3 just because circumstance, injuries, or whatever. I like it a lot more when he's in the backcourt, and I think probably it'll add to his free agent value, which I think will be good for him to have played these guard minutes. But he is a good creator for himself and others in that mid-pick and roll situation. He gets to the rim quick. I think it's been a little bit of a surprise to us.
He thinks of himself as a guard too. He
loves it.
Yeah, he much prefers, I think, this situation from the Brooklyn one. Was that something you guys talked at all about, like his potential role in Denver?
Yeah, definitely talked to him. I would talk to him and his agency about. Definitely saw him more as a guard, and I mean, his story is interesting. He was at Miami and he played on the ball. He played the point guard with Lonnie Walker, and he had an injury. And I think that's why his stock dropped to the second round. But early in the season, because Donovan Mitchell just had that crazy year, I think he was getting some like Donovan Mitchell comps, at least internally from our scouting group. And just kind of lost some momentum because of the injury and fell into the second round. And Detroit picked him, and he developed into an NBA player. But yeah, usually these guys they're usually noticed at some point. It's just fascinating how we talked to Bruce about when I first came in town, like how the injury affected his draft status and how he looked at that, and then how different teams have viewed him to this point. I think he's given a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, right. You've noticed that whenever you've talked to him, he's quick to bring it up.
Yeah. Let's ask about this season real quick. How do you evaluate the season? Like, what were some of the wins that you feel the team got this year, and how do you grade it?
Well, you got to take a 30,000-foot view of it. I think all in all, it was an outstanding season considering we had Mike and Jamal coming back from injury. We had all these free agent additions, all these guys that were young guys from the draft. We had to deal with some adversity with the whole MVP
Yeah.
dialogue and discourse nationally, and we felt like, I think in the middle of the season around All-Star break, we hit a little bit of a lull because, the MVP dialogue rolling around Joker, and some of it just took a nasty turn. And I think also guys felt kind of disrespected that we didn't get any kind of like recognition from All-Star Weekend. Aaron sacrificed, played his role, was like when you look at these guys that have to make a sacrifice, he was the guy. He was a top 5 guy in high school. He was a one and done. He was a 17-year-old playing for Orlando. He's played every role. He bought into his role here. He did everything that was asked of him and was efficient, and he didn't make the game. I think, it's a team game. It's about us, but like every now and then, I think those things can provide a boost for the rest of the season. And when we didn't get that boost, I think, look, the first year a lot of us are used to being in this position. I think it took the air out of our wheels a little bit, so to speak.
So how much was it discussed a lot, or was it just a thing
I
all
think
felt?
it was just no. I try to push through it. His agents, the players are very classy about it. You never hear them say like, "Oh, can you help me get this or that?" But a lot of times we're proactive as an organization because we want the guys to have a good experience there. And I'll reach out to Calvin Andrews or Mike George and say, look, we're going to try to do what we can to help these guys. So I think in that sense, that's how I have knowledge of it. And in the Joker situation, you just can't. Nobody could avoid it. It was just so loud and like everywhere he turned. So I haven't talked to Joker personally how he dealt with it or handled it. I can't imagine it didn't have any impact at all. We're all human, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's just my view of it.
That's one of the questions is, this season, as good as it has been, now comes the point where it just feels like there's a lot of pressure on the team. I don't know if I'm just projecting that because I feel pressure,
We feel pressure.
We feel
I'll say that.
we feel a certain amount of pressure of, hey, we've been talking about this for several years, hyping it up, like we see a thing coming, and now it's here. What is that pressure like on the other side for you guys? Do you feel like there's pressure and you guys are feeling it?
I don't have to make a jump shot. No pressure on me at all, man. I know as the people down the floor, coach and players, you're in the game. You have to make the right calls as a coach. You have to drop the right plays. So in that sense, there's pressure, and the players pressure to perform. And I just think, hey, there should be some healthy pressure. Pressure is not all bad, right? Right. There should be pressure is coming because we've done some stuff that's pretty cool. And we have a really talented team, and we should, in essence, take advantage of this opportunity. That's where the pressure comes from our end. It's pressure to know that these opportunities don't arise every year. And, we have one right now. We're relatively healthy, and we're together, and we have the talent to do so. So we have to go handle business, and, I think we will. And I think the fact that, what alleviates the pressure, and that's probably the thing that we maybe could have taken control of a little bit more if we had played better. But in the first year, Golden State won it. They won 28 straight regular season games, right? And they blew through the playoffs pretty easily. But when you win 28 straight games, there's a certain confidence that comes along with that.
Right.
Is there a way? I think it started happening at the end of the season when some of our young guys started to provide energy. And I think, hopefully going into the playoffs, whoever we match up in the first round, we can start off with a good thrust and come out on the right side of it, and maybe by a good margin, hopefully, right?
Right.
Maybe a scenario like that, helps alleviate some of that pressure. Say, all right, who we are, you guys should have some element of fear playing.
Yeah.
So I think from reading between the lines what's out there, I don't think a lot of teams really fear us playing us. I think, honestly, we feel some kind of way about it. You know, I know I would if I was a player, right? So, but on the other side of it, we didn't play great the last month of the season, so we kind of deserve it. You know? So, what do we do about that? How do we reconcile that as we move forward in the coming weeks?
Oh man, I'm ready to run through a wall.
I was going to say, to me, that seems more like the anthem of hey, this team is the 1 seed. And when people go out and say that, there's a certain level of disrespect to it that I think you should feel, you being a player or whoever should feel that. Do you have a personal expectation for what should happen this year?
I think I'm a process guy, man. I feel like if we go about the right way, and like if we lose to the We Believe Warriors in the first round,
right?
But we did everything right, so be it. And conversely, if we make the finals, but like we don't approach the finals the right way, guys aren't focused, they don't take it to win, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
So like I think it's more about the approach and how you do it, and more than the result. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So like, I expect us to approach it the right way. I expect us to have the right intensity level, the right focus, the right camaraderie as a team. That's what I'll be looking for.
What are some of the basketball, keys, or what would you say with the team? Like it's, hey, they got to defend or they got to do this thing. Like, what do you feel are some of the big indicators?
I mean, everybody knows, and Jamal knows that like he's a big key to our team, and him playing at. We've come to, in Denver, in this market, particularly in our team, expect him to play like a top 15 player in the league when the playoffs come. And, and whatever that looks like, it's more than the night-to-night production or the crazy games he's having in the bubble, but like the consistent aggression, the consistent focus and competitive spirit that like I believe is one of the best in the league when he's in his A game. That's what I want to see every game from him, and I think that'll manifest itself into some pretty big number of games and some impact on winning. But like I think so. He's a very important part of the team, and obviously Joker's a very important part of the team too. And him doing what he does and taking his game up another level is crazy every year. You don't think the guy can play at any higher level anymore. And then the next segment comes on and he plays better. So
right.
I guess we come to expect it. Should we expect it? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's fair.
It's funny. At the beginning of this year, we were like, what does he have to do to be in the MVP conversation? And we were like, average a triple-double, have the most efficient season of his career, and be number one in the West.
Yeah.
And
that's
there
what
you
he
go.
did.
So now we have to think, what does he have to do next year?
I know.
It's kind of funny. It honestly is. But at the same time, I'm with you. Like when I started to project, like, okay, that's regular season. Now, playoff, you're like, hold on, playoff, these numbers are already absurd. Like, okay. But at the same time, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and a two-time MVP. Like you said, there's a healthy pressure sometimes of now's the time. Cal, thanks for spending this time with us, man.
No problem.
This was
Awesome.
insightful. You guys got any other questions here?
I actually have one more for you. You strike me as a fella that doesn't get too high or too low emotionally throughout the season. With the playoffs coming up, are you excited? Do you feel like competitive juices personally?
Right now, sitting here in this chair, no.
Okay.
But
Well, that's our bad.
I'll give you an anecdote. I'll give you an anecdote. First game of the bubble, we're playing, and there's no fans, and you're like, this is going to be the playoffs? By the time we got to Game 7, you could cut the tension in the place with a knife, and my stomach was in knots, and everybody's stomach, whether we were on Utah's side or our side, was sitting on the edge of their seat. So I think the pressure of the game brings that out, as you get closer to it. And I think the closer we get to game day and know who we're playing, tip off, we'll be excited.
I got a theory for you. Your theories, guys. I want to give a theory to you. There was 2 fights on the bench in the game 82. But we saw one on the Clippers. We saw one over here. My theory is the regular season doesn't carry. You talk about tension. The regular season just doesn't carry that much tension. A game here, a game there. And I almost feel like he swung from 81 games of no tension to do or die for a couple of these teams. And you saw players were almost not ready for it. It's like, oh my God.
I totally agree. I think it should make for some fun games this evening.
Yeah. I can't wait for it. Cal, thank you so much. Guys, general manager of the Denver Nuggets.
There he is.
Everybody, that deserves your like. Throw that like for us on the way out. And again, we're going to have great stuff for you all week. Tomorrow, the Denver Nuggets are going to practice. So we're going to have our first practice ramping up to playoffs. We'll be reporting on that. Brand new show at 2 o'clock, everybody. We'll see you then.